Since independence, Nigeria has been experimenting with various mechanisms and different policies by successive administrations to achieve national integration and foster national unity and integration at various levels. However, it is believed that no nation can build enduring peace and guarantee adequate security without the involvement of the traditional structure and institutions that reside and interact regularly with the citizens at the grassroots. This is why Nigerian Institute of Public Relations set aside a forum that looked at leveraging traditional structures and institutions for community peace and sustainable security for national integration.
It is the traditional institution and the rulers that are nearer to the people, each community, than even the local government chairman. And that way, it is very easy for traditional to coordinate, to synergize, and effectively protect his community or her community. So, which means by the time this institution is given the support it deserves, it will be easy to have peace, it will be easy to sustain security, and it will be easy to have sustainable development.
The traditional institutions were in charge of peace and security. It was even a shame or a taboo because they had the local police, they had prisons, and they called them Gidan Sarki, maybe in Hausa, up not here, when you're taken to prison, now correctional center. Nobody wanted to identify with criminals.
Nigeria, no doubt, is currently facing security challenges in various parts of the country. The professionals were of the view that community conflict and decisive tendencies, as well as religious intolerance, can be a strong reason to advocate tolerance and peaceful coexistence in the country.
Religion has everything that it takes to maintain peace and order and give security and bring people together onto what we might call national integration. The problem that sometimes we experience is not the problem of religion. It is the problem of individuals who practice religion. There are religious fanatics, and these religious fanatics can be found both in Christianity and Islam, and even in traditional religion. They are there. And if they are not brought to order, then they will continue to perpetrate problems.
Experts say there is need for identification, reorientation and promotion of core national values, development and redeployment of new communication, culture and trust in government to foster social cohesion, tolerance and integration.
In spite of all these deliberate efforts that have been put in place, why are we still far away from being a fully united and integrated nation?
We need ethical revolution in this country. In Japan, government doesn't need to shame you. Commit suicide when you do something against what they consider ethical. But in Nigeria, we are waiting for the next news. So we are due for ethical revolution in this country.
But how can these values be propagated and integrated into the different walks of life of the nation? What are the challenges confronting the effective engagement of all institutions and structures?
We truly understand the importance of economic integration, and we use the tool. We believe that the road to integration, where sustainable economic measures and feasible infrastructure are key pointers that will significantly increase our chances of integrating the nation as a whole.
The potential for transformation of the nation through the engrafting of these pan-Nigerian values can become the mission of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations.
If we do not reconstruct and rebuild the local governments and give hope to our own children and grandchildren, in another 5 years, nobody can sit in it all and hold a conference. I go to my church, you go to your mosque, but prayer without work is a futility.
The NIPR hopes that the Citizen Summit will lay a new foundation for the citizens and the leadership mindshift and promote a new national communication thrust based on mutual respect, love, and non-violence. Hamman Jabani.
All right, let me at this point introduce our guests of this program. We'd like to welcome Malam Mukhtar Zubairu Siraju, Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, President and Chairman of Governing Council of the NIPR. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Cyril, and good evening.
Okay. Let me also welcome to this program Dr. Ike Niliaku, also a Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. He is the Chairman, National Planning Committee, NIPR Citizens Summit for National Integration, Peace and Security. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Cyril, and good evening, Nigerians. Thank you.
I'd like also to welcome to this program, or perhaps I should just say welcome home, Chief Moji Makonjola, MFR, CEO, Founder, International Society of Media in Public Health. It's good to see you back home.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be here.
All right. Yeah. Now that you're on the other side, we'll see how this
we'll see how it goes. Don't grill me.
Okay. Let me also say a big welcome to Saleh Mulali, Executive Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission. Thanks for being with us tonight. All right. And again, a big welcome to Alhaji Isa Ozi Salami, OFR, President, Nigerian Institute of Industrial Security, Lagos. It's good to see you. Right. Okay. As we do every Tuesday, we acquaint you with the procedure. Some of it, of course, will be much later during the program, and that's when you can be part of the discussion in the studio. We'll remind you of the procedure at that time. But first, let's get cracking with this matter of citizens' conversation, national integrity, and citizens' conversation and national integration. And let's begin with the president of the NIPR. Last week in Abuja, here, the federal capital, the NIPR organized a summit, and you called it Citizens Summit. Tell us about that. What's the concept behind that, and why is it necessary to hold that?
Thank you, Cyril. Our institute is the body charged by law to regulate the practice and profession of public relations in Nigeria. And one of the core mandates of the public relations profession is actually relationship building and relationship mending. Last year, we sat down when we were re-elected to a second term. We sat down and took a look at the Nigerian landscape and realized that our relationships were actually descending into the abyss. We used to have very, very beautiful relationships amongst the component units of the country, between us as individuals. We had such beautiful relationships that at some point you couldn't tell who from the other. We were not asking each other mundane questions about our ethnicities, our religious backgrounds, our geographical accidents, if you want to call them. But all those things seem to be history. And we felt, well, we owed the society a duty to intervene as perception managers, as relationship minders, and as people in charge of communication. We realized that the collapse, so to speak, of our relationships largely came about because of either the collapse of communication or the existence of a communication that is of the violent variant. So, realizing that Nigeria relationships had seen better days, we felt it was not an irredeemable situation. Since it had happened before, we could reenact it, and that was why we decided to now provide a neutral platform for Nigerians to come together, discuss with one another, rather than what we were doing before, sitting at our own comfort zones and hurling invectives at one another, playing holier than thou, thinking that every other person was the devil and we were the saints. I mean, we felt we needed to come together, take a look at the Nigerian problems, make our own confessions, accept the fact that we are all in it, if it is good, if it is bad. And since we all seem to know what the problems are, we made the Citizen Summit to be a solution-driven initiative. We didn't come to discuss problems, we came to discuss solutions. And one thing that summit last week achieved that I don't want us to lose sight of was the fact that for the first time in a very long while, we were able to bring Nigerians from all hues, from all crannies, from all persuasions. They agreed to come together, sit under the same roof and discussed issues. And one thing that we came out with was the fact that there was not a single voice of dissent, that we all loved this country. We were all not happy about the situation that the country is in, and we believe that the country can be better.
All right, let's come to Dr. Neliaku. Now, you chaired the committee that set up this, but Nigeria has never been short of discussions, dialogues, and such meetings. Beautiful on paper, beautiful on the discussions, and the theme is always saying, oh, this country needs to stay together. Relationships should be built. But that's where it ends. How isn't this going to end that way?
Thank you, Cyril. First of all, like the president said, we didn't just wake up to start doing this. We are professionals. And that comes with a lot of innovations and creativity. When we decided to go into this project, we had to first undertake a study. And the study produced three key things, essentially, that gave us direction on what to do. But because we are relationship managers and relationship builders, we understood very clearly that for this to be done, we needed to engage the stakeholders, being the heart of public relations practice. Without stakeholders, you cannot go far. We harvested the views of the stakeholders and we determined clearly that this is what Nigerians wanted. But beyond that, we needed something different. Therefore, we went for a situation where after the summit, what would be the post-summit activities? We answered that question from design. While conceiving the concept, we had to answer the question, how will this pan out? That helped us in shaping the nature of the summit, beginning with zonal dialogue series we had in the 6 geopolitical zones. And that helped us to begin to build the interest that was generated. And then we had the 7th zone, that's the diaspora. From there, we were able to aggregate about 17 critical issues that formed the basis of the real summit that held in Abuja last week. Beyond that, we also discovered that it's not enough to have discussed all this. Interest had been generated. Attention has been drawn. What next? We decided that there has to be a robust strategy to draft the report of this summit. So we had a team of best brains in the industry and in relationship management, those that understand very, very well the nature of our society, to craft a report. And we were not in a hurry. We said for 3 months, go and work on this. It's led by Professor Andrew Haruna, former Vice Chancellor of Federal University, Gashua, with other prominent people who understand the issue. So that report is being prepared. And that report will have the blessing of everybody because they will only do a draft. This draft will go round the same cycle, the same cycle rather, that we went through. At the end of the day, we will now collect additional information and then we'll come out with a report. Secondly, the NIPR has given itself a 10-year period, timeline, to execute the outcome of the report. So it's not something we just discuss and go home. It's a task that we have given to ourselves. And our model is what happened in Malaysia and what happened in Singapore in the 70s and in the 80s. So we have a template that we are working with. And then finally, at the end of it all, we intend to have citizens' charter focusing on national integration, reconciliation, and development. We believe that the citizens should own the process of reinventing Nigeria. So that for once, let us begin to ask ourselves, what is it that I need to do for my country?
Thank you. Now let's go to the media veteran, journalist and health reporter of many a standing. How do you key into this as Society of Media and Public Health?
The thing about the whole summit, the build up to it, the need for it, calls for a healthy existence. We cannot sit here as people and start to think of a rebirth, a new Nigeria, without the health perspective in it. But before I go to that, I just want to bring us back a little history that has resonated in me. Growing up in Zaria in the 60s during the disturbances then, northern disturbances, we lived at the School of Pharmacy. And I tell you, as I speak to you, my heart still bleeds. That was the first time in my life I saw corpses. That was the first time in my life that I saw a mass grave of Nigerians. It was also the first time that I began to see what integration is all about. Because it didn't matter those bodies that were in that mass grave. What mattered was, having a balance of people integrating as one. And that to me, up until now, gives me the spirit of the can-do of the Nigeria of our choice. It didn't matter whether an Igbo, Hausa or Yoruba person was there. What mattered was a human being was there. And for me, each time I went to Zaria, it was a reflection. I don't see the grave anymore, but I still see I was young. It's still there. And these are things that we need to speak about. We don't want to go back to those dark days that still affects me as a grandmother. We want the Nigeria that you and I grew up in Minna, where it didn't matter where you came from, where your religion didn't matter. I spoke Hausa, for example, before I spoke Yoruba. That's the healthy side of it, the psychological part of it that we need to bring back. That yesterday, the Nigeria you and I knew, the Nigeria that made me who I am, that gave me the pride of being a woman, of being a mother. But beyond that, we lost it. How did we get to where we are? Those are the questions. And in the last 10 years that I've been on bridges, this is every episode reflects to I want back my Nigeria. And that's the drive for me.
Okay. Thank you so much. You want back that Nigeria. Saleh Malali, Executive Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission. Is it possible?
Thank you very much, Cyril, and good evening, Nigerians. I would want to pick the discuss like Moji just said, a Nigeria of our choice, a Nigeria that all Nigerians will be proud of. Is it a possibility? Certainly it is. Societies, communities, and nations have faced various challenges at different stages of their development. It doesn't matter what type of challenges, it doesn't matter what are the issues. What is most important is that the people of the times, the citizens of those societies, what did they do with those challenges? How have they responded to those issues? How have they responded to those challenges? And how did they convert those issues, challenges into opportunities? Opportunities for integration,
opportunities for development, opportunities for reshaping and reorganizing their societies and nations. And I believe as citizens of this country, we have the capacity, we have the knowledge, we have the wisdom, and we have the broad-mindedness, the previous experiences, a long history of coexistence, a very rich cultural heritage, very rich religious values that will all help this country to shape itself back. What is needed, like this institute is trying to do, this society, the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations is trying to do, is how do we galvanize the citizens of Nigeria? How do we get everybody on board? How do we get our youths refocused, resensitized, and remobilized to create a Nigeria of our choice? We are what we make ourselves to become. Nobody will make us, nobody will make our nation but ourselves. So I do believe strongly that this is possible.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll just go straight to Raji Isa Uzi Salami. And yes, there was a country that enjoyed some period of integration and very good relationship, but somewhere along the line it was lost, and the younger generation keep asking the same question: how did it happen? If the older generation at that time had good legacies and had imbibed or instilled these legacies into the younger generation, how could it have gone so horribly wrong?
Viewers, the challenge, the national challenge that is staring us in the face has to do with our rapid growth or development. Some of these things that we have achieved took some other countries much longer period to achieve. So because we were in a hurry, we were in a haste. For instance, in some countries where they had war, the war experience that we have had, it took them much longer to get integrated, but we were always on the fast lane. And maybe because of this, we left certain important elements out without realizing. For instance, when I was in the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, I joined the Students' Union, and I didn't find it attractive. For instance, even though I was interested in becoming the president of the Students' Union, I never found it attractive to look for people from my town or people from my province. That time we didn't have states to come and back me. Instead, I looked for people of like ideas, and they promoted my candidature. And by the grace of Almighty God, I became the president of the Students' Union. And when I became the president of the Students' Union, I'm saying this because the example of leadership is very, very important to all that we're talking about. As president of the Ahmadu Bello University Students' Union, I made sure that those who contested against me, I brought them on board by appointing them to go and be our representative in the National Union of Nigerian Students, called NONS that time. It is now called NANS. And these little gestures had tremendous influence in unifying the students' union government that I headed. And throughout my time, late Professor Mahmoud Tukur was the director of the Institute of Administration in Congo then. And the students' unionism then was so heavy, and both the administration in the university and the students' unions, we were pursuing the same goal. And I was being consulted on whatever it is that they were doing. I still remember that time, the British Deputy High Commissioner in Kaduna wanted to see me, and he wrote a letter to the Vice Chancellor of Ahmadu Bello University, which was minuted to the registrar, that he was going to be in Zaria for a weekend, and he was going to be in somebody's house, one of the Europeans, and that we should come and see him there. And I instantly replied him that I'm not a subject of the British Empire, and he cannot just summon me like that. He should, if he wants to see me, he should seek appointment, and then I will tell him when I am available and where I will be available. And to my surprise, I thought that with that kind of reply, he was going to... I'm just saying this to tell you how Nigerian we were then in spirit. And the man replied me and said, okay, when could I see him? And I said, okay, I will be available. I think I said at 2 p.m. And then I gave my hostel address. And I was thinking he was going to call on my bluff, but he came. And he spent almost 1.5 hours with me in my room in the students' something. And we discussed a lot of issues and so on and so forth. So that kind of pride that we had, we are so sure that our country will not let us down. That time, it was very, very pervasive in everything we did. I remember when Malam Maman Daura was editor of the New Nigerian, which was very, very influential. He was arrested and detained. We didn't know who he was, but because we read his columns and his editorial and the Candido column, and we were just admiring some of the things he was saying, the ideals that he was preaching. We went on the street and demonstrated that if he was not released, heavens was going to fall and so on and so forth. And we were, demonstrated against the Gowon regime. Even when we were doing that, we made sure that no public property was destroyed. We made sure it was peaceful. So much so that when we got to Kaduna, the acting governor at that time happened to be General Yakubu Danjuma, the brigade commander then, and he was also acting because Abakari, I think, was on leave. So we went and presented our letters to him. And he was so impressed with our conduct that he brought out military vehicles to take us back to Zaria. And, there was responsibility in quite a lot of things we did then. But nowadays, unionism has become so aggressive, and of course, two wrongs cannot make a right. I'm not trying to say one side is wrong or one side is right, but two wrongs cannot make a right. And I think we should always have a constructive approach to whatever we are doing. That's the only way that the country will move forward. And the present agitation along tribal lines is very, very embarrassing to some of us, because the country that we subscribe to, people like Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe sacrificed so much for national unity. People like Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, people like Sir Ahmadu Bello, people like S.L. Akintola, people like Michael Opara. These people saw Nigeria as one entity, even though everybody had their own vested interest that they were fighting for. But all that was within a general understanding of a united Nigeria. And the expatriates that some of us blame the colonial fathers, I think they all did their best within what was available then. Of course, their interests as colonialists came here and there, but it was not as conspicuous. I'm saying all this because today, because of a certain selfish drive, because we're looking for shortcuts, we exploit base sentiments like religion.
Thank you so much, Alhaji Isa Ozi Salami, for taking us down memory lane and recalling the experience of so many years ago. Even though, as you yourself have just admitted, it might be extremely difficult to replicate that experience today. I don't think any military commander would, would put you in any vehicle to take you back home. But beyond the discussions in the studio, we also have a number of reports. Let's take this first one by Dauda Mohammed from Kaduna.
The unrelenting effort to inculcate patriotism among Nigerians through different means by the nation heroes past and current leaders have been a beacon of hope for the country to stand as a strong and vibrant nation despite challenges strengthening its unity.
We always want people to come and join hands together so that we should build a great Nigeria. Forget about the issue of religions or ethnicism or sectionalism, whatever. At least this country is one. At least God wants us to be one. That's why we are still one.
The premier of northern Nigeria, we know that we all grew up in a situation whereby he did not discriminate. And they were politicians, but they were politicians that knew what it meant to keep the unity amongst us.
The promotion of national interest has been the most potent that downplayed divisive tendencies of some elements considered surrogate of vested interest.
Put Nigeria first before any other thing. Once, if yes, that's you'll be able to do that. I think the problem is solved actually.
Values such as truth and honesty, such as development, such as accountability and good name should always be our guiding principles and should always be the guiding principles of all politicians who are vying for political offices, because at the end of it all, the aim is to build, not to destroy.
Multicultural and multi-ethnic as well as multi-religious nature of the country makes it a vulnerable tool in the hand of manipulators, but high sense of patriotism among Nigerians deters such manipulative tendency to work.
Let's forget about religion, forget about ethnicity, forget about where that person comes from, forget about what religion he is. I mean, our two great religions are very much alike.
Despite differences among citizens of this country, their faith in Nigeria's project will continue to resonate.
All right, our next report comes from Port Harcourt, and it's by Robinson Derataide.
Nigeria is a society with multi-ethnic, religious, and cultural diversities, which is in their need of a common national identity. Since independence, some policies and decisions of government are said to have been influenced and given ethnic interpretation, giving rise to distrust, sentiments, and agitations. Respondents believe that what binds Nigerians is stronger than tribal and religious differences, while the different cultures and values should be geared towards national benefits.
We didn't become Nigeria through national integration. We became Nigeria by the action of the British government. And the British did not allow us to evolve to nationhood based on our separate identities. There's nothing we can do now other than to ensure that we have one language. That's what makes for proper national integration.
So when we talk of national integration, we are talking of that oneness, irrespective of any linguistic difference.
Try anywhere you find yourself, it should also be your hometown. When somebody lives in a place for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, you still call him a stranger. If we want Nigeria to be integrated, these two components should be deleted from our constitution.
They noted that the requirement for state of origin and religion, while filling forms, is instilling sectional consciousness in Nigerians who ought to see themselves as one.
States are divided along ethnocentric lines. If it is possible, go back to the regional we had in the 60s, that would be better for us. If we don't want to go back to the regionals, let us expunge local government in our constitution or any form we are filling. Let us expunge state of origin, remove that. Once that is removed, I think Nigerians were good to go.
Politicians are also advised to avoid campaigns of sentiments that could affect national unity. In Port Harcourt, Robinson Derataide.
At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, there will be more on national integration, and at that time the phone lines will be open. Hopefully you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The Nigerian Electronic Media Content Exhibition and Awards, NEMSIA 2022, is born. It is the biggest gathering of TV, radio, online, film, and all forms of electronic media content in one place to celebrate and do the business of content for 3 days in August 29, 30, and 31, 2022 at Radisson Blue Hotel, Ikeja, Lagos, Nigeria. Register now to attend at www.nemsia.net. NEMSIA is brought to you by MCON in collaboration with BMA, collocating with NIFS, proudly supported by media support by NEMSIA 2022. One place, 3 days. Content is king, always.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
Like I said, I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, at this time, we'll open the phone lines. You can call in, and we always say this every Tuesday. If you call in and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point. Keep it short. Don't bother too much about the greetings. Just a mere hello will do. This so others can get on the line. So we're back talking about national integration, and let me come back to the president of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. You've been around the 6 geopolitical zones. What are the feelers you're getting from those places? Because sometimes we hear heated arguments, and they tell you, look, we don't want to be part of this union that was foisted on us by the British. They didn't seek our opinions before what they did in 1914. But what do you get from people, especially at the grassroots?
Well, interestingly, like I said, we went around all the 6 geopolitical zones. We started with Kano, then we went to Port Harcourt for South Kano, Northwest. From Port Harcourt, we came to Jos, North Central. From Jos, we went to Gombe, Northeast. Then we went to Enugu, Southeast. We did Lagos, Southwest. Then we did the 7th zone, the diaspora, sometime in June. And interestingly, we were pleasantly surprised because there was not a single zone we went to that people said they were not interested in remaining Nigerians. In fact, we went prepared for such eventualities. Okay, if people said this, how are we going to manage it? We were pleasantly surprised. There is a lot of frustration. There is a lot of anger. But the anger is at the fact that this country has no business being where it is today.
Could this be put at the doorstep of poor leadership?
I want to believe so. I think leadership has a very, very fundamental blame to shoulder in this thing. Across board, not any particular leadership. Leadership across board has not.
It's failed.
It has. We have to say it as it is. But the interesting thing, one more interesting thing, Cyril, is that in the course of our consultations, especially with the socio-cultural leaders, because we touched base with religious, socio-cultural, Afenifere, Ohaneze, Arewa Consultative Forum, Pandef, Middle Belt Forum, there was none that we didn't actually touch base with. And we were warmly received wherever we went. In fact, some were even asking, you guys, where have you been all this while? We've always needed this. It's good. We always told them it's better late than never. And some of them that you hear in the media being reported as spewing venom here and there, talking, were even the ones that were telling us, no, you can't be more Nigerian than I am. I think the issue, apart from, it is a function of leadership. Leadership has, over time, abdicated the responsibility of being deliberate and proactive about bringing Nigerians together. And our political leaders generally have not helped matters. That is the way we look at it, because when they come together and the going is good, you never get to hear anything from them. It is only when they get the shorter end of the stick at the political table, that is when you hear, I'm a Muslim and she's a Christian and that other one. But when the going is good, you don't get to hear that. And one other thing, when I told, I think it was in Enugu that they actually clamor for an Igbo president came up. And I spoke very much from the younger elements. Okay. And I now spoke to them, told them what they didn't know. That in those days, when even myself, I was not born, I think, I told them that history has told us that there was a certain Malam Altine that contested for a mayoralty election in Enugu and defeated Igbos. Okay. Igbos, you see, and I told them that as recently as 1999 in Kaduna State, where I come from, Kaduna South local government voted for an Igbo man to represent a constituency in the Kaduna State House of Assembly. So it is not all bad. But Cyril, before I stop, I think parents too. Number one, governments have abdicated their responsibility in being proactive. Those processes of integration that were ingrained in our system while we were growing up, like building schools and bringing pupils and students from across board, has been stopped. Chances are that wherever public school you go to in any community now, every pupil or student that you see there is likely to be from that community. So they don't know anywhere else apart from their communities. And I connect that with, let me give you a short story in 30 seconds.
Okay, well, we'll come to it. We have a caller who's been on the line for quite some time. Peace calling in from Taraba. Hello, please go ahead with your question or comment. Is Peace there? Turn down the volume of your TV, Peace, and go ahead. Right, go ahead. Okay, maybe we would have to ask you to call back later. Yes, you were just going to make a point about...
When I talk about parenting, you know, some of these things begin from the family unit, because that is where you begin to be molded into who you are. Our parents too had played very positive roles in the way they molded us, in the way they made us see and relate with one another as brothers and sisters, irrespective of those divides over which we have no control. I remember when I finished my primary school, you know, in those days, if you did so well, you were likely to get admission into multiple schools. I was supposed to have I got admission to go to Federal Government College, Kano, Barewa College, which was the main thing in the north then, and then Kagoro Secondary School in Kaduna State. My father, who was an Islamic scholar, we all thought it was going to be either Zaria or Kano. And I was just 12, 13. He said I was going to Kagoro. And my mother said he was crazy. How could you take him to somewhere where he didn't know nobody, blah, 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 blah. The roof was going to cave in. But my father called me and told me, look, go there. You know why? If you go to Zaria or Kano, you're going to continue to relate with the same types of people that you know. You're going to continue to speak Hausa. You just go to Kagoro. I want you to go and, there are people there, Kagoro is in southern Kaduna, which is predominantly Christian. Go and make friends there, because there are people there that do not worship like you, they do not speak like you, they have other idiosyncrasies that were different from yours, but God loves them too. This was what he told me. I still remember that. And when I went there, I've continued to be grateful to my father for that decision that he took for me, because the relationships that I have developed from Kagoro have subsisted till today. And one of the things that have remained greenest in my memory was the fact that I was punished by a Christian prefect in Kagoro. Do you know what? For what? For failure to go to mosque.
Oh, well.
I mean, this was the Nigeria that we grew up into. Beautiful. I mean, when you said it's going to be difficult to reenact that, I want to disagree. I think since it happened before, we are not inventing the wheel.
Yeah.
It can be done, but we need to play our roles. Governments have to play their roles. Those institutions, those processes that were put in our system that were supposed to generate integration must be returned, and parents too must play a role in letting their children respect whoever they come across, because I always tell people, whatever human being you see, that human being is endowed by God in a way that you are not.
Well, back to the phones. We have Ada calling in from Jos, one of the regulars of this program. Hello, Ada, go ahead.
Hello. Ada calling in from Jos. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, let's hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Patriotism is nurtured by making healthy policies. But in Nigeria, it's on the pages of newspapers, electronic media, and what have you, and in jingles. For instance, the education sector, the discrimination in cut-off marks into English schools, cut-off marks in admission in favor of certain sections of the country under the guise of educational backward areas, discriminated school fees in state-owned tertiary institutions nationwide, where non-indigents are made to pay twice or more as school fees compared to the indigents, and nobody seems to see anything wrong with that. I'm not quarreling about the ratio as regards the number to be admitted. It can be 70% for indigents, while 30% for non-indigents, or 60-40. Once admission is given, they should all pay the same fees. Only foreign students should be made to pay higher fees. State of origin should be replaced with state of residence. These are the things. So you don't keep on saying you want us to be one Nigeria, and then you have policies that make it very difficult for us to, be thinking along that line. America is great today because they have a large heart to accommodate people of diverse culture, religion, etc. Well, I'm still optimistic that with good governance, we'll get it right sometime someday. So I just pray in the next incoming 2023 that we'll have, a bridge builder as a president. God bless Nigeria. Let's not give out this country. It shall be well.
Thank you very much, Ada from Jos. Well, Dr. Neliaku, this is something that's been discussed across the length and breadth of this country. The question of indigenship, or whatever they call it, forms you feel you're required to state your state of origin, local government, tribe, religion. And it all goes, and sometimes you find that these forms go as far as even hospital forms request to know your tribe, and you wonder what seeing a doctor has to do with your tribe.
Absolutely.
And so lots of Nigerians are saying, look, when you have such divisions, how can you build an integrated society, because you, at every turn, you're being reminded you're not from one particular part or you're from another part. And as long as certain indigenes get advantages over others who are resident in that same place, isn't this going to be a tough call?
Well, I'd like to tell you a short story. Since you talked about doctors and why we have to fill forms, talking about, where we are coming from. I once asked a doctor, why do I have to fill my state of origin in Abuja for you to attend to me? He said, no, it has nothing to do with ethnicity. He said, certain sicknesses are prevalent in some areas. So, as a medical doctor, you are trained to look at symptoms from the perspective of history, geography, and sociocultural issues. I said, really? I didn't know that.
And when you have a global pandemic, so where do you place that?
So you see, there are some of these things, but sincerely, Nigeria is a nation in transition. And don't forget, we were not programmed to be a nation. I keep saying this. We were not programmed originally to be a nation. We were programmed to be a country. And unfortunately for us, when we became a country, we ought to have worked towards becoming a nation. And instead of working towards becoming a nation, we dropped the ball. So because we are not yet a nation, we are more interested in addressing where we come from instead of the nation. African polling system did a study in 2019, 2020, and 2021. You know what? 82% of Nigerians prefer dual citizenship or dual identity, if you have to call it dual identity. They prefer to be a Nigerian and a Yoruba man, a Nigerian and an Igbo man, a Nigerian and a Hausa lady, a Nigerian. Nobody will tell you, I am a Nigerian. Just a few. Primarily, what you get is, I am Igbo, who is a Nigerian. In Rwanda, they had to give that up and said, you are no longer a Tutsi or a Hutu. You are primarily a Rwandan. And wherever you find yourself is where you live, and you take advantage of those things. Cyril, when we begin to be serious about nationhood, such matters will be dealt with. You know why? One of the things that lead to people agitating for their ethnic identity and representation is, again, that challenge of trust. Once trust has become a huge deficit, the tendency is that everybody becomes protective of his personal interest, his group interest, his ethnic interest, and so on. Because we have not built our nation on the basis of equity, fairness, and justice.
All right.
So by the time we land, you will see that things like that would no longer become issues.
We have calling in from Abuja, Abacha. Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Abacha. First of all, I want to greet my mother, Mujima Singh Majikunjola. There's a time that she went to Taraba doing Goodluck Jonathan, and she gave me a work to be one of the members of the interest. She said, this guy is a Muslim. He said, there's nothing like being a Muslim. She just like an answer based on the job that she kept. That's from there, since to the Goodluck Jonathan regime. I have to tell the Nigerians, this woman is a good woman, she's a good mother, and I continue to pray for her. Secondly, I'm from Taraba State. What I'm saying, we are seriously divided in Taraba State. And we need people like you to come and do something so that Tarabians will come together, because we are seriously divided based on religion, tribal, this and that. That's why Taraba State is not moving forward at all. One of the states that is not moving forward in Nigeria. I wish you all the best, and may God continue to lead us. May God continue to protect us, so that Nigeria will become one, as we know. Thank you very much.
Right,
That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Abacha, calling from Abuja. Let's go over to, yes, and while we're on the subject of integration, there's another aspect of it, and the founding fathers, it's been said that perhaps that bit of unity they forged was because of the circumstances, and that this probably what we face today is as a result of scarce resources, the struggle for very limited resources, and therefore people have to go back into their cocoons and say, look, if there isn't enough for us, then we'd better struggle to get the best that we can for each other. How do you respond to that?
First, I'd like to say that our forefathers, their thought about Nigeria was not premised on resources in terms of sharing or getting. There was a cohesion, and I got this, firsthand when we celebrated Nigeria at 100. I was mandated to speak to 100 notable Nigerians, and the only question I asked is, "Are you proud to be a Nigerian? Would you remain a Nigerian?" And the answers were spontaneous. They didn't think about it. So, oh, of course, yes. This is Nigeria. This is where I want to be. And said to me about all the gains that we have as a people, in spite of our diversity, that should propel us to be greater than where we are today. So, our forefathers, I'm sure, had that too. And that's what propelled, and that's what brought about Nigeria and the national anthem, which I always like to go back to, our former national anthem. But seriously, I think as a people, growing up, we lost some of this. When we were in school, you remember, it didn't matter where you came from. Whether you were in a mission school or in a public school or in a private school, what matters was going for that education, and you came back home, excelled, parents were proud. If a child was out there, was misbehaving, they said it's a child of the society. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They said, for a woman, you are just a vehicle to carry the baby to grow. When the baby comes, it becomes public property in terms of, looking after this child. But we lost it when we lost the sense of equity, when we lost the sense of discipline, when we started looking through who you are, when we started thinking of class. It didn't matter whether, wherever you are, you had your own pair to grow with. But we became, suddenly, I don't know, maybe the oil did this to us or whatever it did to us. Suddenly it's about what you do. People see you now. You're not seen from the perspective of integrity, of strength, of purpose. You're seen from the perspective of what car you ride, what things you do. So, a lot of things had gone wrong that we can right.
Hopefully.
And yes, I'm very optimistic about it. Right. It's a determination, and that's why, please, Cyril, and that's why I want to say to us today that as parents, we need to do much more than we're doing. I cannot listen. It breaks my heart when a young child comes and, "Where are you from?" You hear that now. So, look. So, if the parents are not exhibiting these traits, the children won't take after it. So if we are talking of true integration, we are talking of unity, we are talking of peace, we should be looking at equity, we should be looking at the fundamentals in terms of home bringing up. Parents, mothers, we sure do have a lot to do.
We have to be
deliberate, that's it.
Very deliberate. That's what
let us hear from Umar Anachi, who's calling in from Birnin Kebbi. That's another regular on this program. Umar Anachi, let's hear you.
Yes, I'm Umar Anachi, calling from Birnin Kebbi. You see, national integration. First of all, God in his infinite mercy created us to become Muslim and Christian. God does not make a mistake. He created us Muslim and Christian for us to live and to respect one another. If God wants to create us all Muslims, he will have done it. If he wants to make us all Christians, he will have done it. So in his wisdom, he created us different tribes, different religions, and different ethnic groups. There is one of my colleagues who is a Yoruba. She is from Osun State. She lives in Kebbi. Her father died in Kebbi. Her mother died in Kebbi. But she born her children. When she took them to the Osun State, they will say Omo Hausa. When she took the children to Kebbi State, they will say they are not indigenous. So I pity those children that lost identity. They are not there, not here. What is it is too bad for our country to know those children, they lost their identity as it is present. So it is good to vanish or to waive this issue of indigenship and replace it with the citizenship. If you are a Nigerian, you are a Nigerian. Anywhere you are a Nigerian. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Umar Anachi. And let's go over to Salim Omali and put this, what you listen to Umar Anachi and what he just said, the question of indigenship. And I also want you to factor in the question of religion. How much has religion influenced what Nigeria is going through now? It's said that Nigerians are very religious people, but I always ask this question, can we equate being religious and being godly?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I think there has been a lot of discourse on these issues at different forums and throughout the country. First of all, fundamentally, I think we are taking certain things too far, beyond what they are intended to or they were intended for. And there is a lot of misinformation, there is a lot of rumor, there is a lot of speculations, and there are a lot of, sentiments that drive many of the discourse that we see, for example, in many of the issues that have been raised. Religion is never a factor of division in any society or in any community. Ethnicity is never a factor of division. At the national level, if we come to national politics, for example, you begin to talk of Yoruba, you begin to talk of Igbo, you begin to talk of North, South, all these dominations. But come to any specific local enclave, like just the caller from Taraba says, Taraba is the North. So, again, why should you talk about differences? Why should somebody come to Taraba State and say he is discriminating against one person or the other? Because they are all Northerners, for example. So why can't they just be the same? The same thing if you go to the Southwest or the Southeast or the South-South, you still find these micro differences at those levels. So it means we are taking this differentiation, we are taking these issues of citizenship, indigenship, beyond what the founding fathers of the nation earlier envisaged. I think at the beginning, it was just to address that fear of domination by one section of the country against the other that brought in that idea of the principle, of the character, the Federal Character Commission, to ensure that in everywhere all segments of the Nigerian society are represented. And I think that was what brought about some of this indigenship, citizenship, local government, indigene, and things like that. It was to ensure a fair and equitable representation across the country. But after that, we missed out, we took it beyond what it was intended for. And again, like the president said, there is a lot of anger wherever you go to. And many of this anger are driven by misconceptions, by misperceptions. If you go to, for example, the Southwest, they will say all the resources of the country is in the North. If you go to the South, they will say all the resources of the country is in the southwest and in the north. If you go to the southeast, they will say the north and the southwest have garnered everything. If you come to the north, they will say that it is the southwest and the southeast, the southern parts of the country has everything, and we have nothing. So many of this is driven by misconceptions. And I think fundamentally, our mainstream media, our professional bodies, our religious institutions, and the leadership that everybody keeps blaming must come on board. These are fundamental issues. The kind of information we relay to the Nigerian public, the type of upbringing we are giving to our parents, like people have said, the family institutions, our institutions of learning, that's the schools, and the institutions that molds the character and values of the society, mainly our community institutions and our religious spaces, have not done this country justice, have not done fairness in terms of orienting our young populations to recognize diversity, to recognize the relevance of diversity in development, to understand even the pluralism of the nation and how pluralism will help us cement and unite and give us greater level of opportunities for equitable development. I think these are some of the critical missing things. So coming back to what you said, these things are feasible. It is just a matter of taking deliberate action. I'm happy when the president, when Dr. Egweze said they are working on a 10-year program. I'm happy he's not talking of 2 years, he's not talking of 3 years. We have not had a very long-term strategic framework for transforming Nigeria. If we are going to put this in place and we pursue it over time, and we bring in our professionals, we bring in the political leaders, we bring in the religious institutions, we bring in our traditional institutions who are the custodians of our culture and value, and we integrate it with the school system to build a new narrative for the country, a new ideal, a new value system. I keep saying that as a country, as Nigeria, we have failed to develop a common goal for ourselves as a people of this country. For that reason, everybody begin to develop a goal for himself, because there is no Nigerian goal for me to pursue. So I have to sit down and begin to think of my own personal goal, or the goal of my village, or the goal of my community. And we keep, fundamentally, I need to say this, I always feel saddened when I see people of great knowledge, of great wisdom, people that have attained scholarship, that are in high-level leadership positions, going back to speak on, as if they are constituents of their own immediate villages or communities. Like somebody once said it, it is not, there is no university in any village, there is no higher institution or a universal value in any village. We have to come out and have a common Nigeria, a common global village. So fundamentally, let us set a value system for Nigeria, what we want our country and our nation to be, and when we use that as a basis for reorienting our citizens and engaging our young people, so that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we have Nigerians and no longer people identifying with various ethnic identities.
Let's take this final report from Enugu by Chika Ugu.
Nigeria, no doubt, is endowed with abundant human and natural resources. Its over 160 million population is divided along ethnic and religious lines, which necessitated the adoption and implementation of the Federal Character Principles in 1979. The whole idea is to ensure equity and true representation of its people and avoid dominance of a particular ethnic group over another. However, efforts towards achieving social integration and national development, key players say, has over the years been hampered by poor education, religious bigotry, and nepotism.
Ethnicity, of course, has been a very major issue in Nigeria politics, because you find out that even from the First Republic, Nigerians have voted along tribal lines, and I think that is the bane of Nigerians' division.
This has continued to take its toll on virtually all spheres of the nation's economic and social lives, forcing untold hardship on people, poverty and underdevelopment.
The leaders, the imams, the priests, the bishops, what have you, they should be able to tell their words, their followers, their congregation, the truth.
Very incompetent people have hidden behind religion and behind ethnicity to create problems in Nigeria.
Some school of thought are of the opinion that one sure way to emancipate from what they describe as mental slavery is through the promotion of values with respect to the sanctity of lives and the enactment of laws to engender justice and tolerance. The importance of youths in ensuring harmony and national integration cannot be overemphasized, as the future of any nation depends on them.
The youths are not born to be placard carriers. The youths are not made or not been trained to be touts and be carrying ballot buses. Other youths in other climes are innovative, developing themselves, human capacity management, and even in electoral positions. A time for them to train so that they can learn and also help the society.
There is also a concerted call on leaders of religious organizations and traditional rulers to place national interests far above self and sectional interests. In Enugu, Chika Ugu.
Okay, let's go over to Alhaji Isa Uzi Salami. And a key part of whatever efforts harnessed for integration would be the youth. And we say today that we have an army of youths who are angry and disappointed, disenchanted with the system. They think that the older generation have failed them. How do you begin to bring them back? And also, I think it was Salim Omali who talked about how this all started, the fear of domination. But that fear is still palpable today. Nothing is going away, not anytime soon. So how can you take advantage of the growing youth who might have a different perception and try to mold them differently? And of course, dispel this fear of domination.
The fear of domination has been tackled by the constitutional provision for Federal Character Commission. How much are we adhering to the guidelines or to the principle of federal character? And then there's a lot of frustration because youths have graduated from the university, done the compulsory national youth corps, and are finding it very, very difficult to get job. And some of them have discovered that it is not because an interview or an aptitude test has been conducted and they did not succeed. It is something else that is the cause of their not succeeding. So these are the real frustrations that we must, the issue of corruption is something that we need to look at. Because if we know the kind of setback that corruption is causing us in this country, we'll pay much more attention to it than the lip service we seem to be putting on it. Then also, I talked of leadership before, and some other colleagues also emphasized on it. Leadership is so important, and a leader must be exemplary. He must be upright, and he must be trusted. Once these qualities are found, you find out that Nigerians are the easiest people to rule, and suddenly people will just be cooperative and become positive. But the leader must motivate, and the leader must show good example. If we go back to the Sardauna days, there was no feeling of domination, whether you were a Christian or a Muslim. Sardauna was from Sokoto. The next person to him was Aliu Makaman Bida, who is from North Central, for instance. And he had Christian ministers. I mean, somebody from my town, like George Uru Hikere, was Minister of Works and Minister of Health. These are very, very key ministers. In fact, there was a time he even acted for the premier when he went on pilgrimage. So if we see leaders showing these kind of examples, it will help us a lot in getting national unity. It is the content of leadership that we must be very sincere about.
Of NIPR, the summit has taken place. There's a strategy for post-summit activities. Beyond that, what happens? Where does the government come in? Where do the citizens come in? Who drives the process?
Well, we call it Citizens Summit. So it is going to continue to be driven by the citizens. We are not government. We cannot implement.
Okay.
But we have a strategy in place. Like he said, we didn't conceive it and program it to be a one-off thing, an event. Right from the conceptualization stage, we made it a process that is going to, of course, outlive this council of the institute. It is going to, even the initial 10-year period is going to outlive about 5 councils of the institute. But what we intend to do is, as stakeholder managers, continue to engage with all the critical stakeholders, just like we started last year. We are not going to go to sleep over that. We will ensure that it remains on the front burner of discussions in the country. We will ensure that governments, of course, before we started, we reported ourselves to government so that nobody, we didn't leave any room for suspicion or for the breakdown of communication between us and the various stakeholders. Look, this is who we are worried, this is what we want to do, we are not out to take over anybody's job, it is just our widow's mite of contribution towards national healing. So we will ensure that we keep governments at various levels on their toes, telling them, harping it on them, that this is the situation. Nigerians are angry, Nigerians are frustrated, Nigerians are disenchanted, and this is what they want. They are not asking for too much. All they are asking is that they be treated as human beings. Let them be prioritized. Let there be a deliberate retracing of steps. Let us ask ourselves the difficult questions. Where did we miss it? We had very good relationships. This country was a better place. I've always said that we seem to be, smart societies are programmed in such a way that every generation is supposed to do its best to ensure that it bequeaths a better society than the one that it inherited. But in our case, we have remained perpetual prisoners to nostalgia. Every day, yesterday was better. Every day, every now and then, we reminisce, we have fond memories of yesterday because we are not enjoying today. No, we've just felt we needed to be deliberate about this. How do we do this? And the youth thing you said, I'm glad that we have an army of angry youths, but that anger can actually be galvanized and turned and get turned into a positive force. We need to actually begin to breed a band of angry youths that ask the necessary questions. We must ensure that they are guided to ask the necessary questions, not questions of where our leaders come from or what God they worship. No, ask the tough questions of leadership. What have you done with the mandate that we have given you? What are you going to do differently from the person that is in place now? And earlier on you talked about the issue of resources. I think even the resource thing is not been given a fair and adequate priority that it deserves. I think we have about 1 million square kilometers.
923,000 square kilometers.
973 actually.
23.
Okay, it's 23. About 1 million square kilometers, of which about 75% of which is arable. But you will weep if you realize that of that 75%, only 2.5% is being cultivated. What are we doing with the natural resources that we have? So it's not a question of resources. It is the deployment of the resources that is the problem, and which now zeroes down to leadership. We are not here to bash leadership, but we are here to speak the truth. You know, philosophers say the worst lie the worst lie is the one that you tell yourself and believe it. So we don't want to continue to tell ourselves a lie.
Yeah, Dr. Deleapu, leadership at all levels, even in the home. And let's talk here about failure from the home. And that is another level of leadership onto the community level and all that. It's a whole gamut that will be working towards this integration. Your 10-year period, which will continue to be reviewed and carried forward, what are the chances of success in this enterprise? And what I might be tempted to ask, are you putting in place to ensure that when this council is out, the next council believes in this dream and continues with it?
Very important question. You know, this is a project of the Institute. And I can say that given the leadership of the president, he made sure that everybody, at least 97% of members of the Institute, bought into this before we actually went out. We made sure that within our own home, we secured the mandate. And at every step we've taken, we have carried the Institute along very clearly. What that means is that whether he is there tomorrow or I am not there tomorrow, or even if the entire current council of the Institute, about 22 of us, were to retire by the time our tenure is over next year, I can assure you that out of this 97%, we must get people who are ready to continue from where we stopped. That's the essence of stakeholder engagement, which we talked about from the beginning. Because if we did not do a lot of work in getting our own stakeholders to buy into the project, that would have been a problem. You wouldn't have seen the success that we experienced. So I can tell you that it is an NIPR affair. That's number one. Number two, we have 75 other organizations, credible organizations, that are partnering with us.
Including NTA.
Including NTA. Including NTA. So it is, at some point, you will see that even if the Institute, even if we have a kind of some leadership that begin to do something else, they will take the leadership from them and move on. And it is deliberate. Because we have said, we are not joking with this. We are putting our names on the line. So even if some characters come after we are gone from leading the Institute, you will see other people who will say, sorry guys, you can stay, but we are going on.
Okay. Let's begin to wind down now and then quickly go over to Mamali, Sali Mamali, and ask for your closing comments as we begin to wind down this discussion on the sustainability of this project.
Very much. Once again, the Institute for this initiative, I think they will have a large buy-in of a large section of Nigerians. Already they need to mobilize. They have to get other professional bodies in the country to key in. The Nigerian Union of Journalists, the Nigerian Bar Association, the various peace practitioners and those shapers of the opinions of the public. And importantly, our religious and our traditional leaders have to key in strongly into these. The youths can be mobilized, the youths can be galvanized, the youths can be provided with the needed capacity, like the president said, to exploit and develop Nigeria's existing resources. But they need the support, they need the right policy environments. I'm happy the agriculture, which is one of the mainstays, just launched the NATIP, the Nigerian Agricultural Technology Innovation, I think, plan. which is an innovative framework that will allow a lot of young people to key into the agricultural sector. So there are huge opportunities in this country. There are huge resources in this country. But we have to change the mindsets. We have to change the narratives. We have to develop new ideals, and we have to set goals, positive goals for ourselves. And we need to engage Nigerian citizens. We need to create and pass the right messages. We have to stop this stereotyping, this profiling, these lies, I can call it outright, sometimes coded lies that are being propelled about different sections of this country against the other. And we must pass the right information and the right messages. There are rich people in every part of Nigeria. There are corrupt people in every part of Nigeria. There are poor people suffering and looking for opportunities for development in all parts of Nigeria. So if we develop our country positively, it's for the betterment of all of us. If we destroy any part or any section of it, it will all contribute to our negative and retrogression. So let us work together. I will still appeal to the Institute to continue to pursue this and to bring in the various organizations. In Kaduna State, we are trying our best at the level of Kaduna State Peace Commission, working with various communities to create this social cohesion. And like somebody said, we recognize that Nigerians do not value what we call the sanctity of life. A huge section have been allowed to deteriorate, and they don't see taking a life to mean anything. So that's why we have a lot of criminal gangs, we have a lot of drug barons killing Nigerians all over the country. And this has nothing to do with ethnicity, religion, or place of origin. This has to do with the disorientation of the mindsets of a few Nigerians whom we need to work with the security establishments to deal with in accordance with the laws, and then focus on the larger section of the Nigerian society through correct messaging, reorientation, and providing opportunities.
All right, Alhaji Isa Uzi Salami, your closing thoughts as we wind down and how to carry this forward and to sustain this drive for integration.
I think is lacking, and if we don't bring it into emphasis, is succession planning. We need to institutionalize succession planning in all facets of our life, because that will give us the correct and appropriate direction. Secondly, we must give credit or recognition to outstanding performance. And then we must also try to punish unacceptable behavior so that it becomes an example to deter other people. If we can do just these few things, a lot of things will improve to our surprise.
Thank you very much. And let me come to you, Muji. I have two questions for you here.
Okay.
The first is, what about the other participants here to talk about sustaining this project and ensuring its success? Then, after that, the other question will come in. I'll save it for now.
Yeah. All right. I think I have my hopes built that this can be institutionalized. What I saw at the summit totally speaks to the fact that as a people, we need the integration. As a people, for us forging ahead in terms of development, in terms of the world has become a global village. And if we're serious about the tag that we have given ourselves as the big brother, as the father of Africa, of the black world, then we need to be deliberate and serious about this integration. I also like to emphasize and concur to what Alhaji Uzi Salami said, during those finishing lines, that we must start thinking seriously of legacies. You see, because leadership, we don't hold them accountable for legacy. They just do and go away. There's nothing to show. At a point in this country, I started getting worried. Where are the leaders to look up to? We had the Saudanas of this world to talk about, the Tapabalewa, the Awolowos. Well, who are we talking about now? Have we as a country eroded ourselves of people that our youths can look up to. Those are the kind of things that I want as we go on with this integration that we should start looking into. Legacies. Our legacies should speak for ourselves. Today, you and I will talk of Adamaogi, who are our mentors growing up as broadcasters because of the legacy they left. But who are the youths looking up to? So these are some of the deliberate inputs that we need as we go on with this 10-year. As far as I'm concerned, it's going to be forever. Because you go to Rwanda, a young Rwandese is not telling you, he's not proudly, the young man at 7 is saying to me, I'm a Rwandese. I'm not Hutu. So we need to get to that.
All right. Thank you so very much. Well, I'll still come to you with that. That would be after I've said a big thank you to Madam Mukhtar Zubairu Siraju, President and Chairman of Governing Council, Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Dr. Ike Neliaku, Chairman, National Planning Committee, NIPR Citizen Summit for National Integration, Peace and Security. It's always a pleasure to discuss with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let me also say a big thank you to Sally Momali, Executive Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission. Thank you so much for being with us. Isa Uzi Salami, President, Nigerian Institute for Industrial Security, Lagos. We want to thank you very much and for availing us of your experience and thoughts on these matters. Thank you so very much. Thank you. And for my colleague here, that's the last question which I promised to ask you. How does it feel that you're not asking the questions?
I tell you, that's why I pleaded not to be grilled, but you did grill me. Okay. But it's been wonderful coming back here.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mojima Konjola, MFR, CEO, founder, International Society of Media and Public Health. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thanks to you too for being part of this program. Next week we'll reach you again with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.
Thank you.